If you're an INTJ, you've probably spent your entire life watching people chase things that seem utterly meaningless to you. While the world around you buzzes with excitement over social trends, emotional displays, and conventional success markers, you stand apart, not out of arrogance, but out of a fundamental difference. Today, we're exploring the psychological landscape of the INTJ mind, those rare architects who make up just 2.1% of the population. These are the individuals who see the world not as it is, but as it could be, and who have little patience for anything that stands in the way of that vision. We'll examine 10 things that most people desperately want, but that leave INTJs feeling nothing but indifference or mild annoyance. So if you've ever felt like an alien observing human behavior from the outside, if you've ever wondered why everyone seems obsessed with things that feel trivial to you, settle in. There's a peculiar ritual most people engage in, a constant seeking of emotional validation from others. They need to know they're doing well, that they're liked, that their feelings are understood and affirmed. Conversations become elaborate dances of reassurance, where every statement must be met with empathy and agreement. But for INTJs, this entire system feels foreign. Their minds don't operate on the frequency of emotional validation. When an INTJ makes a decision or forms an opinion, it's the result of rigorous internal analysis. They've examined the data, considered the possibilities, and arrived at a logical conclusion. The idea that this conclusion needs external emotional support seems bizarre, like asking someone to validate that 2 + 2 = 4. This isn't about lacking feelings. INTJs experience emotions, sometimes deeply. The difference is they don't need others to constantly acknowledge those emotions to feel secure in them. Their self-worth is internally generated, built on competence and achievement rather than external approval. Most people view this independence as coldness. When an INTJ doesn't seek reassurance after sharing a decision, or when they don't offer the expected emotional responses during conversations, others interpret it as apathy. But the INTJ isn't apathetic. They're simply operating from a different framework entirely. They respect others' autonomy to feel what they feel, and they expect the same respect in return. This creates a particular kind of isolation. While everyone else is building connections through emotional exchange, the INTJ stands apart, watching this intricate dance with detachment. They might participate when necessary, but it always feels like performance, like speaking a foreign language they've learned, but never truly mastered. People discussing weather patterns they can do nothing about, sharing mundane details about their commute, exchanging pleasantries that carry no real information. The room hums with chatter, and everyone seems genuinely engaged in these content-free exchanges. For the INTJ, these moments feel like watching time dissolve into meaninglessness. Their minds are wired for deep analysis, for exploring complex systems and abstract concepts. When forced into small talk, they experience something akin to intellectual claustrophobia. It's not that they can't engage in light conversation. They can, and often do. But every moment spent discussing nothing feels like an opportunity cost, time that could be spent on something substantial. Most people use small talk as a social lubricant, a way to establish rapport and signal friendliness. They find comfort in these predictable exchanges, safety in the familiar rhythms of conventional conversation. But INTJs see through the ritual to its essential emptiness. They'd rather sit in silence than fill the air with meaningless words. This preference creates social friction. When others attempt to engage an INTJ in casual conversation, they're often met with terse responses or redirects toward more substantive topics. The INTJ might ask, "But why does that matter?" Or, "What's the deeper pattern here?" Questions that derail the comfortable flow of small talk. Others interpret this as rudeness or social incompetence, when really, it's a fundamental difference in what the INTJ values in human interaction. The INTJ isn't antisocial. They crave connection just like everyone else. But their definition of connection involves intellectual compatibility, shared pursuit of understanding, and conversations that actually go somewhere. Small talk, to the INTJ, is the antithesis of connection. It's a barrier that prevents real communication from happening. Every culture has its rituals, holidays celebrated in specific ways, ceremonies performed according to ancient scripts, rules followed simply because that's how it's always been done. Most people find comfort in these traditions, feeling connected to something larger than themselves through shared practices. INTJs look at traditions with a fundamentally different question. What's the logical purpose of this? If a tradition serves a meaningful function, bringing family together, creating joy, teaching important lessons, the INTJ can appreciate it. But when a tradition exists purely for its own sake, when the only justification is because we've always done it this way, the INTJ feels nothing but resistance. This isn't about being contrary. The INTJ mind is built to optimize, to question, to improve systems. When they encounter a tradition that seems inefficient or outdated, their first instinct is to redesign it. They'll suggest alternatives, point out illogical elements, or simply refuse to participate in aspects that serve no purpose. Others often experience this as rudeness. "Why can't you just go along with it?" they ask. "It's important to the family." But the INTJ can't simply suspend their critical thinking to preserve social harmony. Their minds won't allow them to engage in something they view as fundamentally meaningless, even if everyone else finds meaning in it. This creates a peculiar loneliness. During holiday gatherings or cultural celebrations, the INTJ often feels like an anthropologist observing foreign customs. They participate enough to avoid causing offense, but internally they're disconnected, unable to access the shared emotional experience that binds everyone else together. It's not that they don't want to belong. They just can't force themselves to value something their logic rejects. There's a universal human desire to be liked, to be accepted by the social group. Most people expend enormous energy managing how others perceive them, tailoring their behavior, moderating their opinions, seeking that precious commodity of approval. INTJs find this entire endeavor exhausting and ultimately pointless. Their attitude toward being liked is pragmatic. If my competence and ideas are valuable, people who matter will recognize that. If they don't, they're not people I need in my life. This isn't ego, it's efficiency. The INTJ understands that trying to appeal to everyone means diluting your authentic self, and authenticity is one of the few things INTJs genuinely care about. This manifests in fascinating ways. While others carefully craft their social media presence, the INTJ might barely maintain one. While colleagues engage in office politics to win favor, the INTJ focuses purely on delivering quality work, assuming competence will speak for itself. While most people soften their opinions to avoid conflict, the INTJ states their position directly, unconcerned whether it makes them popular. This selective indifference to others' opinions is often misunderstood as arrogance. People assume the INTJ thinks they're better than everyone else. In reality, the INTJ simply operates from a different value system. They respect competence, intelligence, and logical consistency, and they extend that respect regardless of whether it's reciprocated. But they don't need to be liked to feel valuable. There's a quiet confidence in this approach. The INTJ knows who they are, what they're capable of, and what they value. External approval doesn't add to or subtract from that self-knowledge. If others appreciate them, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. This freedom from the need for approval allows INTJs to pursue their goals with singular focus, unencumbered by the social games that consume so much of everyone else's energy. The calendar of the average person is filled with obligations. Birthday parties for acquaintances, work events that would be good for your career, family gatherings that promise drama, weddings of people you barely know. Most people feel bound by social contract to attend these events, worried about giving offense or missing opportunities if they decline. INTJs approach invitations with ruthless calculation. Will this event contribute meaningfully to a goal I care about? Will there be intellectually stimulating people there? Can I learn something valuable? If the answers are no, the INTJ feels no obligation to attend. The idea that one should sacrifice hours of their finite life to maintain appearances strikes them as absurd. This creates significant social friction. Friends and family interpret declined invitations as rejection. You never come to anything, they complain. But the INTJ isn't rejecting the people, they're rejecting the format. They'd happily spend time with these same individuals in settings that allow for genuine connection, but large gatherings filled with small talk and social performance feel like torture. The INTJ's time is their most precious resource. They're acutely aware that every hour spent at an obligatory event is an hour not spent on their projects, their learning, their goals. This isn't selfishness, it's prioritization. The INTJ would rather spend an evening advancing a meaningful pursuit than an evening pretending to enjoy forced socialization. Most people eventually learn to stop inviting the INTJ to things. There's a certain relief in this for the INTJ, though also a tinge of something else. Not quite sadness, but perhaps awareness of the trade-off they're making. A connection requires some compromise, and the INTJ's unwillingness to engage in social obligations they find meaningless often means missing out on the spontaneous moments of genuine connection that can arise even at superficial events. Scroll through social media, and you're bombarded with status displays, luxury cars, designer clothing, expensive vacations, prestigious job titles. People seem to derive enormous satisfaction from acquiring and displaying these markers of success. The message is clear: look at what I have, see how well I'm doing. INTJs look at these displays with bemused detachment. Their minds immediately deconstruct the behavior. This person is seeking external validation through material possessions, which suggests an internal insecurity about their actual value. The INTJ sees the logic error. If your worth depends on what you own, then you have no inherent worth at all. This isn't about being anti-materialistic. INTJs can appreciate quality, efficiency, and well-designed objects, but they evaluate purchases based on functionality and personal satisfaction, not on how those purchases will be perceived by others. An INTJ might spend significant money on a top-tier computer system or a rare book collection, investments in their actual interests, while driving a 10-year-old car and wearing clothes they've owned for years. The status game seems particularly absurd to INTJs because it's so obviously a game. Everyone is performing for everyone else, with no one apparently stopping to ask, why? The INTJ refuses to participate, not out of moral superiority, but out of simple disinterest. They have better things to do with their mental energy than worry about whether their possessions impress strangers. This indifference to status markers can actually work against INTJs professionally. In many fields, the ability to signal success through appropriate displays is part of career advancement. The INTJ who shows up to important meetings in rumpled clothing, who doesn't bother with the expensive car or watch, who seems completely unaware of social hierarchies. This person often gets passed over for opportunities, not because they lack competence, but because they refuse to play the status game. Turn on any television show, and you'll find plots driven by relationship drama, misunderstandings, jealousies, emotional outbursts, complex interpersonal conflicts. In real life, many people seem to generate similar levels of drama in their own relationships, creating and sustaining emotional intensity that becomes the central focus of their lives. INTJs observe this phenomenon with something approaching scientific curiosity. The majority of relationship drama, from their perspective, could be resolved through direct communication and logical problem-solving. When two people want different things, you discuss it, find a compromise, or acknowledge incompatibility and move forward. The elaborate emotional performances that others engage in seem not just unnecessary, but actively counterproductive. This doesn't mean INTJs don't experience relationship challenges. They do. But their approach is fundamentally different. When conflict arises, the INTJ wants to identify the underlying issue, analyze it systematically, and implement a solution. The idea of having the same emotional argument repeatedly without ever addressing the root cause strikes them as madness. Others often interpret the INTJ's calm approach to relationship issues as not caring. When a partner is upset and the INTJ responds with problem-solving rather than emotional mirroring, it can feel cold. "You're not even reacting," the partner might say. But the INTJ is reacting, just not in the expected way. They're taking the situation seriously enough to try to fix it, rather than simply sharing in the emotional distress. The INTJ's ideal relationship involves intellectual partnership, mutual respect for independence, and minimal drama. They want a partner who can communicate directly, who doesn't require constant emotional intensity to feel connected, and who shares their commitment to continuous improvement. When they find this, INTJs are deeply loyal and committed. But the conventional relationship template, with its emphasis on emotional display and romantic gestures over substance, holds little appeal. There's an invisible social currency in knowing what's trending. The latest shows, viral videos, celebrity gossip, fashion movements. Conversations frequently reference these shared cultural touchstones, with everyone expected to be generally aware of what's popular. INTJs are often completely disconnected from this cultural stream, not because they're contrarian, but because pop culture simply doesn't register as important. They have finite attention and allocate it to things they find genuinely compelling: complex problems, specialized interests, deep learning. Following celebrities or tracking trends feels like wasting precious cognitive resources. You've never seen? Insert phenomenon everyone has seen, comes the incredulous response. The INTJ might explain they've been reading about obscure technical topics, but this just deepens the disconnect. They're not judging others' interests. They understand people find different things valuable. but they won't pretend to care about things they don't just to fit into water-cooler conversations. In most settings, there's enormous pressure toward consensus. People want everyone to agree, or at least present a unified front. Dissenting opinions are discouraged through social pressure. The goal is harmony, even if that harmony requires suppressing actual thoughts. INTJs find this intellectually offensive. Truth emerges from rigorous examination, not from consortium. When an INTJ sees flawed group thinking, their instinct is to point it out, regardless of whether this disrupts harmony. But haven't we considered X? Or doesn't that assumption conflict with Y? These genuine attempts to improve thinking are often received as attacks. This commitment to truth over harmony means INTJs are often excluded from decision-making. Don't invite them, they'll just complicate things. And they're right. The INTJ will complicate things because things often are complicated. They'd rather be respected for competence than liked for agreeableness. Society has a timeline for everyone. Graduate by this age, marry by that age, achieve career milestones at predetermined points. People measure their lives against these expectations, feeling successful when on schedule and anxious when behind. INTJs completely disregard these timelines. Their life plans are based on their own goals and strategic thinking, not on what society dictates. If they want to spend their 20s mastering a skill rather than pursuing relationships, they do so without guilt. Career changes at 40, starting businesses at 50, pursuing education at 60. They make choices based on their own assessment. When are you going to settle down? Family asks. The INTJ's response that they're living according to their own plan sounds like rationalization to people who can't imagine deviating from the standard path. But this is the most fundamental expression of INTJ independence. They recognize life is finite, and spending it pursuing someone else's definition of success is the ultimate waste. The INTJ cognitive functions create a personality fundamentally oriented toward internal frameworks and logical systems. They see patterns others miss, envision possibilities others can't imagine, and organize reality according to principles rather than conventions. This makes them invaluable when systems need optimizing or complex problems need solving. But in social contexts, prioritizing emotional resonance and consensus, the same mental architecture that makes them brilliant also makes them difficult. The INTJ doesn't care about many things others find important. But this doesn't mean they don't care about anything. They care deeply, just about different things. They care about competence, mastery, and understanding complex systems. They care about the few people in their inner circle with surprising loyalty and depth. They care about their vision for the future, about fascinating problems, about leaving the world better than they found it. Making up just 2.1% of the population, INTJs will always be outsiders to mainstream culture. But in a world where most chase conventional goals, where conformity is rewarded and difference discouraged, the INTJ's resistance matters. They are the architects of new possibilities, the strategists who see moves ahead, the quiet rebels who refuse to value what they're told to value. If you're an INTJ, your indifference to normal things isn't something to apologize for. It's the price you pay for seeing clearly, for thinking independently, for living according to your own vision. The world needs people who don't care about the same things everyone else cares about. It needs minds that question what others accept, that build what others say is impossible. So, the next time someone asks why you don't care about something normal, you can simply smile and return to what you were doing. You have better things to think about, systems to optimize, problems to solve, visions to pursue. And unlike most people, you have the clarity to know the difference between what matters and what everyone just pretends matters.